so let's do these. So if you notice, all this says is just name the following compounds. Doesn't tell you anything in the question on if it's ionic, if it's variant, invariant, any of that. So this is what I mean by you have to be able to figure it out. So let's do the first one. So we separate it up, and we notice there's only 2 elements. So there's no polyatomic ions. Okay? I'm gonna figure out what this first guy is. He's a Ti. So let's see if I can find Ti. So here's Ti. A lot of times people get him confused with him. He's Tl. So this is an L, this is an I. Okay? So Ti, so he's a metal, and he's a transition metal. So not only is he gonna be a metal, which tells me it's an ionic compound, but because he's a transition metal, it tells me it's a variant. So he's a metal. So now I know this whole thing is ionic, but he's a variant metal because he's a transition metal, which means now that I know he's variant, I just skip over to the Cl. So the Cl is chlorine. I come over here, and now I know that he's in group 7, so he's a -1. So now I know the symbol and the charge. Because remember, to figure out his charge, I gotta figure out him. So this is Cl, he's a -1. I have 4 Cls. So that's 4 times -1 gives me a -4 for my total negative charge. There's no charge on the whole compound, so the compound is neutral. So that means it's a total of a +4. I only have 1 Ti, so that means that Ti itself is the +4. So now I can name it. So I gotta figure out what's the name for Ti. So Ti is titanium. Titanium 4, so this is IV, because V stands for 5, and if you put it in front, it's like subtracting. So 1 minus 5 gives you the 4, even though that would be -4, but it's kind of the way you think about it. Then this is chlorine. Scratch that and make it chloride. So titanium 4 chloride is how you would say it. All right, let's do the next one. Told you, lots of practice. So PB and BR, so it's only 2 elements. Here, let me write this down lower. 2 elements, so I know there's no polyatomic ions. You need to figure out what PB is. So PB is over here, okay? PB is over here, it's a metal. And so then I gotta remember, is that one of the ones that Dr. C said was invariant or variant? So remember I said this is one of the ones, these guys, this is one of the ones that are variant, okay? So when they get over here, you gotta kinda have to know which one's which. So PB is variant, so I know he's a metal, so that means it's ionic. And since he's over here in this group, he's on the list for being variant. So he's a metal. So now I know this whole thing's ionic, and he's a variant or a variable metal, which means I care about the Br. So now I gotta figure out what Br is. So Br is right here. And so since it's in this group, I know it's a -1 charge, and it's a non-metal. So I know Br is a -1. I have 2 Brs. Each at a -1 gives me a total of a -2 total negative charge. It's neutral, there was nothing written right here. So since it's a neutral compound, the positive is gonna be a +2. There's only 1 PB, so that means the PB itself is a +2. All right, so now that I know what the charge is on the metal, I know what the non-metal is, I can go. So then I gotta figure out what is PB. So PB is not peanut butter or something like that. Remember, PB is lead, and it has funky because of the Latin, okay? So this is lead, 2, so draw 2 lines, lead 2. Bromine, drop the ending to make it bromide. So lead 2 bromide, lead 2 bromide. All right, last one. I got 2 elements. So I know that there's no polyatomic ions present. Got to figure out what this guy is. He's Fe. So let me find the Fe on periodic table right here. And so he's a transition metal. So, and he's a metal, so it tells me it's an ionic compound. And since he's a transition metal, that tells me it's a variant compound. So he's a metal. So now I know this whole thing's ionic. And since he's a transition metal, he's variant. So now I gotta flip over to his partner. So his anion is sulfur. He's a non-metal and he's in group 6A, so he's a -2. He's a -2. There's 3 sulfurs. So that's 3 times a -2 gives me a -6 total negative charge. It's a neutral compound, so my total positive is a +6. But I have 2 Fe's. So I'm going to divide that by 2 so that each Fe is a +3. Okay? So we haven't had to do that here because this was a 1 and this was a 1. But since there's 2 of them, I have to take whatever the total positive charge is and divvy it up for each of those 2 Fe's. So now I need to name it. So now I need to know what Fe is. So same kind of issue here. It's the Latin, so it doesn't really make sense. It's not like you kind of think of ferrous, which is iron. So iron, and then the charge is 3, so we have to do 3 Roman numerals. And then sulfur, we drop the ending and do sulfide. Okay, so iron 3, sulfide. So titanium 4 chloride, lead 2 bromide, and iron 3 sulfide. So now that we've practiced how to go from the formula to the name for variant and invariant metals, now we're going to practice going from the name to the formula. And we'll go back to doing polyatomics later. But I want you to kind of see all the different ways. So next, we'll go the opposite way. Instead of going formula to name, we're going to go name to formula.